Hi everyone! Today I will tell you about the deadliest fog in history. We are in the United Kingdom. It is 1952 and the second half of autumn had been particularly cold in southern England. November and the beginning of December were marked by heavy snowfalls in all southern regions. To keep them warm, the British used fireplaces in their homes, burning large quantities of coal. Each house had a chimney, and each chimney gave off large quantities of smoke. If this wasn't a problem in small towns in the country, it certainly was in London, where a considerable amount of fumes was released into the atmosphere every day, also considering the fact that London was an industrial city that made extensive use of coal even in its own industries. In the first days of December, an anticyclone loomed over the region. This high-pressure meteorological system pushed the air downwards, causing thermal inversions near the ground, facilitating the formation of fog and holding down the coal fumes, generating smog. The word smog itself was invented in 1905 by Dr. Harold Antoine Devois to describe the London air, merging two words, smoke and fog. December the 5th, 1952, was a grey day in London, but the inhabitants were used to it. The sun was rarely seen, and foggy weather was quite usual in the city in late autumn. They went on with their daily activities, and only the following day they noticed the uncommon density of the smoke. This thick layer of smoke over the city lasted from Friday, December the 5th to Tuesday, December the 9th, 1952. During this time, huge amounts of impurities were released into the atmosphere. According to the British Meteorological Office, the fog was up to 200 meters thick, and on each of these foggy days, the following pollutants were emitted: 1,000 tons of smoke particles, 2,000 tons of carbon dioxide, 140 tons of hydrochloric acid, and 14 tons of fluorine compounds. Furthermore, to these lethal compounds, 370 tons of sulphur dioxide must be added, was created by the combustion of coal trapped in the atmosphere, which mixed with the water particles of the fog, becoming sulphuric acid, effectively generating an acid fog. The result was the worst pollution fog in the city's history. The Great Smog paralyzed London and all related transports. Due to poor visibility, there were many road accidents in those days. The doctors and firefighters who had to help the injured had to walk in front of ambulances and trucks to avoid causing accidents themselves. Shipping traffic on the Thames was disrupted, and most London-bound aircraft diverted to other airports, with those departing grounded. The conductors of London's iconic double-decker buses walked in front of the bus, torch in hand, to guide the conductors along the city streets, until they decided to suspend the service. The only active service was the subway, which became overcrowded, with very long queues at the ticket offices. People driving their cars turned on their headlights even during the day and stuck their heads out the car windows to advance at a crawl in the thick fog. Many people found the effort futile and abandoned their cars along the way. Visibility was so reduced in some parts of London that pedestrians were unable to see their own feet, groping their way through the city and managing not to slip on the greasy black slush that covered the pavements. When Londoners returned home, their wind-blackened faces and nostrils made them look like miners. Authorities advised parents to keep their children home from school, even for fear they might get lost in the smog. Looting, burglaries, and poisoning increased since criminals could easily vanish into obscurity. Smog also seeped into buildings. A Guardian reporter wrote that a thick layer of oil grime covered interior surfaces and obscured cinema screens. The Great Smog of 1952 was lethal, particularly for the elderly, small children, and those with respiratory problems. It wasn't until grave diggers began to run out of coffins and florists to run out of bouquets that the deadly impact of the Great Smog was realized. Initial reports estimated around 4,000 deaths due to the smog. According to research data from Johns Hopkins and Carnegie Mellon universities, during that week, hospitalizations increased by 48% across London, and those related to respiratory problems increased by 163%. Again, according to the same research, the deaths linked to the permanence of toxic smoke were not 4,000, but even 12,000. After living for 5 days in a sulphurous hell, the Great Smog finally lifted on December the 9th, when a strong westerly wind swept the toxic cloud from London towards the North Sea. After the events of 1952, the severity of London's air pollution became undeniable. Just 4 years later, in 1956, the British government passed the Clean Air Act as a direct response to the lethal fog. The Act established smoke-free areas throughout the city and restricted the burning of coal in home fireplaces and industrial furnaces. In addition, homeowners were being offered subsidies that would allow them to switch to different sources of heat, such as oil, natural gas, and electricity. Although the change was gradual and another smog crisis occurred in 1962, killing about 750 people, the Clean Air Act has generally been regarded as a major event in the history of environmentalism and helped in improving the public health in Great Britain. Nothing on the scale of the Great Smog of 1952 ever happened in England again. This type of smog is now part of the past, partially thanks to pollution legislation. The introduction of the Clean Air Act, being one of the first legislative acts concerning the problem of air pollution, is still considered a milestone in the history of the ecological movement in the 20th century.